All right, welcome back to AI Analysis via Statistics. I'm Ira Warren Whiteside, and if you've been keeping up with the show, especially those last few episodes, you'll know we've explored everything from the structure of the AdventureWorks 2022 database to how stats can even help you track your health after, say, a stroke or a big weight loss journey. Pretty cool intersection of stats, life, and, well, a whole lot of data wrangling. Today, we're taking it up a notch and really getting into the weeds with metadata and frequency analysis. So what do I mean by metadata? In layman's terms, it's data about data, file names, creation dates, user permissions, size, you name it. But when we talk about analytical metadata, it goes deeper. Schema info from a database, revision numbers, column data types, even audit logs that tell you who changed what, when. All that stuff. Now, one of the bread and butter techniques for dealing with massive data sets, especially in enterprise settings, is frequency analysis. Think simple counts, histograms. How many times does a particular value show up? What are the most common values and what's rare? It sounds basic until you realize, especially if you've run into some of the findings from that what's in my big data paper, just how much duplicate or synthetic or low-quality data is hiding in your so-called clean corpora. We're talking almost 50% duplicates sometimes. It's wild. Back when I was first working on this huge enterprise data mart, this was, probably the late 90s or maybe early 2000s. I always mix up those dates. We started with frequency runs before we even worried about reporting or fancy dashboards. You'd be amazed what pops up. The default values no one notices, region codes that only ever have 2 states when you thought you were national, or timestamps that are all identical because, well, someone did a bulk load and forgot to update them. That early pass, just with frequency counts on metadata fields, ended up revealing things the business folks had no idea about, helped us catch a big batch of stale accounts we could clean up, and helped marketing refocus their efforts. And, this kind of exploratory work is absolutely foundational if you want to build any kind of robust AI or analytics pipeline. You've heard me say it before. Don't trust tidy data at face value. Look for clusters, look for patterns, and always, always start with metadata and frequency. So that sets us up for today. I want to show you how we're now feeding these core stats, this metadata, into far more intelligent systems, not just reports. And how, thanks to agentic AI, you get to move from just detection to real action and insight. All right, let's roll up our sleeves. Once you've collected all this metadata, the next step is feeding it into something smarter. We're seeing this shift now, away from dashboards that are just static toward agentic AI systems that actually do something with your data. Hold on, let me clarify. When I say agentic, I'm talking about AI composed of task-specific agents, not unlike what you see in the recent Druva Metagraph announcements, or in that agentic AI cognitive concerns workflow using Llama 3. These agents can independently process data slices, collaborate, and basically you get something a lot closer to a virtual analyst than a glorified spreadsheet. Prepping data for Notebook LM or any agentic AI is honestly a bit like cooking. First, you need to clean your ingredients. That means running your frequency analysis, profiling the metadata, anonymizing sensitive data, especially if you're dealing with stuff like clinical notes, as in that Archive 2502.01789 paper. There, they passed anonymized clinical metadata to AI agents to flag cognitive symptoms. On my end, I've fed retail transaction marts purchase dates, SKU codes, and customer segments. Nothing personally identifiable, but rich enough metadata for Notebook LM agentic to chew on. The workflow typically looks like extract core metadata, run your frequency and cluster stats, maybe hit it with some anomaly detection to flag the one-off values or repetitive entries. Then you feed those summary stats as CSVs or structured JSON into Notebook LM. The real magic happens when the AI, especially in agentic mode, doesn't just regurgitate back, here's your data. It starts surfacing patterns you might miss. Like in that retail example, honestly, I was expecting the usual quarterly spikes. Instead, the AI surfaced a cluster of purchases that always happened right before unadvertised sales. We didn't even know those spikes reflected employee purchase programs, not public promos. Total blind spot. And this is something we couldn't really do with plain dashboards or old school BI tools. The agentic workflow iterates, refines its prompts, and can even call in other specialists if it hits a tough patch, sort of like a multi-threaded analyst team. As the agentic AI workflow paper showed, you end up with both very high classification accuracy and, interestingly, more efficient iterations. It doesn't take 10 meetings to find a pattern. The AI drills right in. Look, this isn't magic. It's letting your metadata and those humble frequency stats finally have a seat at the table with your most advanced analytics. And it sets us up for the real prize, letting the AI not just find insights, but generate usable documents or reports automatically. So here's where things get cool. Document generation and, more importantly, actionable insights. Once these agentic AI systems have chewed through your metadata and frequency stats, they start kicking out automated documents. Could be executive summaries, full-blown compliance reports, or even workflow recommendations. For instance, with the Metagraph platform we mentioned earlier, the Insights agent takes backup metadata, file permissions, lifecycle timestamps, that sort of thing, and spits out ranked summaries showing what's risky, what's unusual, sometimes even with graphs and next step recommendations. And these agents align everything per tenant, so security is tight. No cross-organization leaks. In one of my projects, after plugging metadata and frequency stats into Notebook LM, we got a report back that highlighted an entirely new product cluster, people buying unrelated SKUs in the same small time window, which marketing had never noticed. That influenced not just a single campaign, but changed the way restocking and promotions were scheduled. That's the kind of aha you're always hoping for. One thing I want to stress, there are still limits to what automated analysis can achieve. Not every anomaly is meaningful. Sometimes it's just noisy data that looks weird on paper but is actually fine in practice. And certain industries, like healthcare, need a human reviewing the final outputs, especially with sensitive or ambiguous data. But we're seeing, as shown in that agentic AI workflow work, that AI can reach expert-level accuracy in many classification tasks. I mean, they're reporting F1 scores right there with the top humans. So could other industries use this approach? Absolutely. If you've got rich metadata, think insurance, finance, operational logs, you can set up systems to hunt for risk, spot compliance gaps, or surface operational trends. The key is always in starting with good metadata and letting frequency analysis drive the narrative. That's going to wrap us for today. If you're following the thread from earlier episodes, where we started with just getting control over your data, then governance, then application to real life, this is where it all starts coming together. Next time, I want to dig into some emerging real-time patterns and maybe answer that open question from a previous episode about using AI for personalized recovery guidance. Thanks for listening. Don't forget, good metadata, clear stats, and a dash of curiosity can unlock more than you'd think.